Morning, everyone.
Good morning, Rabbi.
Good morning, Rabbi.
We're learning Mishnah Pesachim, Perik Beis, Chapter 2, Mishnah Vav, Mishnah 6. Ve'elu yirakos, and these are the vegetables. She'adam yoytze behen yedei chavasa b'Pesach, through which a person can fulfill his obligation on Pesach of eating maror. The Torah commands us to eat maror on Pesach. The Torah's mitzvah of maror is to eat it with the carbon Pesach. Without a carbon Pesach, there is no mitzvah of maror from the Torah, but midrabanan, according to rabbinic law, we eat maror anyway. And these are the types of vegetables that one can use to fulfill the mitzvah of maror. Bachazeres, which they translate as lettuce. Uba ulshin, which actually the Bartanura says also brings down endives. Endives. Uba tamcha. Tamcha, they bring down here on the bottom, is widely accepted as horseradish. Okay, so when you talk about horseradish, the species that's called of horseradish is called tamcha. Uba char chavina. Char chavina is some kind of a thorny plant. Uva maror. Maror is a general term, but it's also a specific name for a specific type of vegetable, which is a type of a coriander. They bring down here.
Coriander is a seed, isn't it?
No, so it's a seed. And these are the things. So these are the things that you can use for maror. Now the obvious question is, how do you use lettuce for maror? Lettuce isn't bitter, right? Maror is supposed to be bitter
than the other stuff mentioned here.
Well, what do you mean? You don't know about the coriander.
Not bitter at all.
So let's wait and see what they say about the lettuce. So they say about the lettuce is that although lettuce generally does not have a bitter taste, it is considered maror because when it is left in the ground for too long, the leaves become tough and bitter. That is why you can use it for maror. You may not be tasting the maror like you do when you have horseradish, or maybe this other thing like the coriander seems to be pretty bitter. But the point is it can get to the point of being bitter, and that's enough for it to be considered, to be able to be used for the mitzvah of maror. Yoitzin bohen, we can fulfill our obligation with these species mentioned. Bein lachem, bein yavation, whether they are moist, whether they are dried out. Now, we're going to see later on that actually this is very specific to the stalks of these things. When we say that even dry you can use for maror, is referring to the stalks of these plants. Since they're thicker, even if they dry out, they still can have their taste, their bitter taste or whatever taste they have. If you're talking about the leaves, though, if the leaves dry out, they have no taste, and therefore, or their bitter taste is gone. But it seems like they dry out; they really don't have any taste, and therefore, when you're dealing with leaves, then if they're dried out, if they're moist, you can use them. But if they're dried out, you can't use them. But you cannot use any of these types of maror if they are kavushin. Kavushin they translate as pickled in vinegar. But the truth is, as far as I've learned, if it stays in water too long, if you were to leave it in water for 24 hours, it would also be a problem. Yeah. But I guess kavushin, typically you're pickling in vinegar. Okay, they cannot be shalukin. Shalukin means, they translate shalukin as stewed, which means cooked so long that they are reduced to a mush. And then mevushalin is again cooked. In all these cases, when you do any of these things to these vegetables, it takes away their bitter taste. And therefore, you cannot, once you do that to them, you cannot use them for the mitzvah. Umitztah for the kazayas. And they can all combine together to make your kazayas, your volume of an olive, which is the amount that you have to eat to perform your mitzvah. Now, when it says that they can all combine to make a kazayas, what it means is that if you take half a kazayas of lettuce and half a kazayas of endives, or half a kazayas of maror, and that is how you make your full kazayas of maror, that's okay. Any of the 5 types can combine together to fulfill your mitzvah of maror. They can combine together to make the shira, to make the amount that you need for the mitzvah. And the Bartanura points out that this line or this phrase is really going back to the previous Mishnah also. The previous Mishnah discussed what can you make matzah, what grains can you make matzah out of? So when we say you can combine them for the kazayas, the amount for the mitzvah of matzah is also the eating the volume of a kazayas. So let's say you made matzah, you have a half a kazayas. Let's say you have a kazayas of matzah from wheat, you have a kazayas from barley, and you combine them together. That your mitzvah can be done. Any of the five, as long as you're making the matzah from the 5 grains, they can combine together to make your kazayas. Then the Mishnah again repeats, "V'yotzin b'kelach shalahen." You can fulfill the mitzvah with their stalks. And here is where the commentaries say is that the point of this part of the Mishnah is to say that the part of the Mishnah that we just read, that you can fulfill your mitzvah of maror, as to whether they're dry or moist, that's going on the kelach, that's going on the stalk. The stalk can be dry or moist. The leaves have to be moist. Once they're dry, you cannot use them for the mitzvah. Ubedamai, and if your vegetables are demai, which means you brought it from an amaretz, you don't know that they were. You have to ties them because we don't know if the amaretz did it. And even if you don't actually fix it, as we had in the previous Mishnah, if it's demai, you can fulfill your mitzvah. Even though if you have mara that would be forbidden to eat, you couldn't fulfill your mitzvah. Demai, we say, is not forbidden enough, so to speak, to make that problem, since demai is permissible to poor people. And if you want, you can make yourself poor. And therefore, there's not something so forbidden or so removed from you to say that you couldn't fulfill your mitzvah with it. And if any of these vegetables are ma'aser rishon, the tithe that goes to the Levi then has to tithe his tithe and give it to the Kohen before he's allowed to eat from it. If we're talking about ma'aser rishon vegetables, that the truma, that the 10th for the Kohen from the 10th was taken, then it's edible. He's allowed to eat it, and he can use it for the mitzvah. Ma'aser sheni v'ekdesh and the same thing. If any of these vegetables are ma'aser sheni, the second tithing that has to go to Eretz Yisrael, or you can redeem it onto money and then take the money to Eretz Yisrael and eat. I'm sorry, to Yerushalayim and eat it there. And then once you do that, the ma'aser sheni grain can be eaten anywhere you want. Or if, let's say, these the ma'aser sheni vegetables in this case, or if you took those vegetables and you sanctified them and then you redeemed them. So again, the money is sanctified, the vegetables are now edible. As long as the hekdesh niftu, if the hekdesh was redeemed, then you can use these vegetables for mar. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you, Rabbi.
What do you use?